Hello and welcome to Radio Spreepark, the Berlin news show. My name's Yuri, and next to me here is Maisie. Hello, Maisie. How's it going?
Hello. All right.
And over here is Joel.
G'day, Yuran. How you doing?
I'm all right as well, thank you.
I think that's the Aussiest hello I've ever given.
That was super dialect. I didn't know you had that in you.
You probably didn't know I was Australian until now, did you?
I
You
didn't.
say good day.
I just thought you were sort of vaguely international.
Joel, tell us what's coming up today.
Oh, and I'm Dan Stern. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for the introduction, Yuri. You're the best. You're the best.
This is the show on Sunday, April 24. We're recording live at the Berlin Comedy Cafe on Weserstrasse with a fantastic live audience who will now yell and scream very loudly. And coming up on this episode, we'll talk about the ruins of Berlin. Which landmark buildings are going to get renovated? And do we actually even want them to be? We've got a special guest today, the local journalist, Mr. Conrad Verna, who's going to help us talk about politics and the upcoming election. And we're going to try and solve a few mysteries, such as why are Berlin streets numbered strangely, and why are there so many lonely bike locks hanging off the posts of the city? So let's crack on with a bit of short news.
Yes, Joel. Plans to build a huge moving seesaw in the centre of Berlin have been shelved.
Yeah. This was a fun park-style sort of monument that was going to be built in front of the new Stadtschloss, new/old Stadtschloss. But these plans have been cancelled. The monument was supposed to cost about 15 million euros, and now new plans have surfaced, adding another 5 million to it, and I guess that was too expensive.
A $20 million seesaw does sound a little exorbitant, but I don't know. Well, now we'll never know.
But it was actually meant to be a monument, wasn't it? It was meant to be remembering something. It was meant to be remembering the reunification of East and West. Yeah?
It had a purpose, yes. The unification.
Does that not already exist?
There is no monument for reunification.
Is it not a historically important event, or...?
They were going to build one in Leipzig, which also put like kind of a bit of a hold on these plans in Berlin. But that one was also scrapped. So now we are without monument.
Unless you count like Potsdamer Platz. Isn't that the monument to reunification? And what else is it there for? So this whole monument was actually meant to be quite interesting. It was meant to be like a seesaw, so you'd have people walking from one end to the other and it would move back and forward. And it was meant to show some kind of, I don't know, like balancing of the two countries and how they joined together. But there were many complications. They went through 2 different rounds. There were 2 different competitions to try and find the winning entry. And then they also discovered some kind of endangered mice living on the grounds where it was supposed to be built. So they
Endangered,
had to move,
Joel. Endangered mouse.
They were very worried about the mice. They had to move the mice. So yeah, no monument.
Well, another bit of news. As of 1st of May, you may have heard about this ongoing kind of situation. It will be completely illegal to rent your flat out on any Ferienwohnung, any holiday flat portal. Now the city government is hunting down people who are using these portals.
They've actually passed a law that allows the city government to demand data from any of the many websites that rent out Ferienwohnung. We're not going to name any here because they don't pay us for sponsorship, so screw them. But if you do use any of these platforms, the city government has passed a law that allows them to go to these platforms and demand the user data, the names and addresses of anyone using them. Now, to me, this seems like a little bit of overreach. I don't know. I can't think of another equivalent where the city government's allowed to just like go to a website and say, tell us all the people on your website, or and we're going to prosecute them all. To me, it's kind of got similarities to this FBI Apple court case in the US, or am I making a stretch there?
No, I think it's perfectly reasonable to compare Airbnb to terrorists who murder people. And you're 100% right on.
This writing out your neighbor thing is more of a Stasi habit, isn't it?
So what you're talking about is the website that the city government set up where you can actually go and plug in an address and a name and dob on your neighbor, basically.
Anonymously.
You enter your name anonymously?
You don't have to enter any details.
Okay.
Except the other person's details. And so this, of course, is tapping into that residing desire of some people in this country to be quite involved in the justice process, even as an anonymous observer. I actually went and did this on the website. It's very easy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I went.
Oh, vigilante! I love it.
No, but I stuck in the address of Rotters Rathaus and put in the name Michael Müller. So I don't know what they're going to make of that. If we all spam it, maybe they will just give, bring a smile to a bureaucrat's face. Is what I was hoping. But this is what the portal looks like anyway. So yeah,
For those of you at home, what he's pointing at is a really boring-looking document.
it's
You're not missing anything.
Boring-looking website you've ever used, but there you go. So if you do have a neighbor and you want to rat them out, now you can. But there is actually one company that's still allowed to rent out Ferienwohnung despite this ban, and that company is called Berlinovo, and they rent out fully rented flats, or fully furnished flats, for up to 40 euros a square meter, which, if you can't do the math, is a fortune. You'll end up paying about 1,000 euros for a one-room flat. And they're only allowed to do this through some kind of loophole. They say because they rent out their flats for more than 30 days, they're not doing Ferienwohnung, they're doing some other category. But more interestingly is that Berlinovo is 100% owned by the city government of Berlin.
Nice. You all know about that airport that they're trying to build down there. Today it's actually been 1,422 days since it was supposed to open. And now there's a job going, Maisie.
Yeah, don't look at me like I want that job. Basically, the airport's PR spokesman, a man called Daniel Abu, has been fired. He was only in the job for 3 months, so that's got to be a record. He gave an interview to a magazine in which he said that no one could give a fixed opening date for the airport. He said, "Believe me, no politician, no airport director, and no one who isn't dependent on medication will give you any firm guarantees for this airport." That's the opposite of what the mayor, we just heard his name mentioned, Michael Müller, keeps saying. He insists it'll be open by the end of 2017, despite ongoing problems. The PR man, Daniel Abu, has also admitted that billions of dollars have been wasted and says that it was better to be transparent about it from the beginning since it would be revealed anyway. His strategy has got him fired. And now I think, well, come on, he's a PR man. That's his job is to lie, isn't it, quite frankly?
Well, that's unfair.
He's not doing his job.
I think maybe he's just trying to find like a new angle. Like, I feel like everyone here and listening at home is totally entertained by the failures of the Berlin airport, and that should be like their brand. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like BER, getting you there someday. I don't.
New job for you there, Dan.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's actually been a meeting at the about the BER of the supervisory board on Friday morning that went for 6.5 hours, and afterwards, well, results weren't really any, but Michael Müller said, yeah, everyone's still believing that it's possible to open in 2017, but he also said, I don't really care whether it's like December 2017 or January 2018, which is the first time that anyone official has ever said 2018.
I love the fact that
It's out now.
they had a 6.5 hour meeting and then came to the conclusion that everyone agreed that it would open on time. Like, what?
With the squeeze.
Yeah.
So we're talking about ruins on this episode of Radio Spreepark. And one of the most fantastic ruins in the whole city could soon be saved or developed or ruined, depending on how you look at it. So that is the massive building is called the Haus der Statistik, which is an office block on the corner of Karl Marx Allee and Otto Braun Straße, diagonally opposite from Alexanderplatz.
Yes, the Haus der Statistik. Trying saying that after a few drinks, bloody hell. They're basically, they want to save it. Some artists, which consists of basically an artist initiative, this is interesting, I've written this, artist initiative consisting of town planners, architects, various foundations. They want to save the building, which was actually built between 1968 and 1970. It was the official house of kind of statistics in the GDR, whatever that means. It also contained the Jagdklause, the Mokka-Eck, the Jagdhütte, and a Natascha Laden, which was a shop selling stuff from the USSR. The building stood empty for 8 years. The last occupants were the authority dealing with the Stasi files. I'm amazed it's still there, quite frankly, and it belongs to the city. This initiative wants to buy the building from the city with funding from private sources, possibly a foundation, in order to open it up for kind of making it into a social housing and culture complex.
This is like clearly not a real. This is something that like people came up with when they were high. Like,
It's fantasy.
no, we'll like take it and then it'll be like a complex for art and.
You're so cynical.
I'm not cynical. I celebrate their enthusiasm. But like, what's the business plan here?
Well, actually, it's a good point. It's going to cost about, the site itself is estimated to be worth between 20 and 40 million euro.
That's like 2 giant seesaws.
Exactly. And the renovation could cost up to 70 million.
Oh, okay, that's not even the renovation. All right.
Yeah, it just keeps going up. But basically, the first tenants should be able to move in 2017. I've got to be careful with dates now.
When will they start saying 2018?
Yeah, exactly. The finance senator, he's in favour of selling it and to the initiative if they can get the money together. So if Sparkasse are willing. The Berlin Parliament wants it to basically to keep it publicly owned, but says it's big enough to accommodate everything, including lots of office blocks. So watch that space.
Okay, as long as we have somewhere to jam 7 more dumb startups, that'd be great.
All right, let's move along from this one ruin to another, the famous Spreepark. What's going on there, Joel?
Yes, well, in 2014, the debt-ridden theme park was taken over by the Berlin city government after decades of controversy, including, among other things, drug smuggling and fires and all sorts. It's a long history. Look it up if you don't know it. So this year, the operations of the park were handed over to Grün Berlin, which is the city government's own park operating company. And in recent days, the head of the company has told local media that he actually wants to partially reopen Spreepark this summer. There's going to be tours going through the park, and they're going to be renovating a building called the Egg House for some 800,000 euros. And they even want to try and start getting the Ferris wheel running again, which makes me ask, if it's not an abandoned theme park anymore, but just a theme park, is that cool? Like, does anyone care?
It does kind of kill the cachet of it, doesn't it?
Who's going to take their tourist friends down there to look at an operating theme park?
Are the dinosaurs still going to be lying around?
They better leave the dinosaurs there, is all I'm saying.
Maybe they can have sort of like a sneaking into an abandoned music park experience, whereby you buy a ticket and like a guy chases you around with a dog, but then you get refreshing soft drinks afterwards.
Continuing with the ruins subject, scaffolding has gone up around Neukölln's best-known ruin.
So this is the Mobile Wolf building, which is on the corner of Hermannplatz there. You might have all seen it. It's got some fantastic graffiti on it by the One Up crew, among others. And it's been empty for decades, or at least, ever since I've been in Berlin. That place has been sitting there just rotting away gloriously. Well, I was riding past on my bike the other day, and I noticed scaffolding going up. And being the intrepid reporter I am, I went and asked the man putting up the scaffolding what's going on. Entire renovation, front to back. The whole building is getting a makeover, and it's probably because the city council has been leaning on the owner for many years now by threatening them if they don't actually do something with the building. If you have an empty building in Berlin, technically you have to register it as empty, and if you do, then there's all sorts of taxes and other things that they can throw at you because the city government doesn't want ruins. They want buildings to be built. They want more apartments. And so I'm guessing that this is a case of this owner just getting one letter too many from the Bürgeramt and deciding finally to actually, make a fortune off that property that's just been sitting there empty forever.
I was super impressed that you knew the name of the graffiti crew that did it, and I looked at the photo and it just says their name really big.
Although I have been in arguments with people about whether it's 1UP or 7UP. It's clearly 1UP.
I think it stands for One United Power.
There's the reporting on the ground.
Joran, you got a new shirt and you think you're so cool.
I feel good. Maisie, I remember this building Tacheles, the Kunsthaus Tacheles in Mitte, that has been closed down a few years ago. What's the news there?
From your childhood. Some work's about to start on the Tacheles, which is on the corner of Oranienburger Straße. Some of you remember it as a kind of arts complex. That shut down a few years ago. The whole thing is now actually going to be developed. The owners say it will still be used for cultural purposes, but I think it's going to accommodate a lot of apartments as well.
So work's about to start there?
Yes, it's about to start there.
So that's our wrap-up of all the ruins of Berlin. If you spot any other ones, please let us know. Write into us, hello@radiospätkauf.com, and tell us what you see about going on in the city.
Subject ruin, so else we won't find it amongst all of our other
Did anyone have trouble finding their way here today? All right. Maisie says it was a little far to get to.
Long way, is all I can say.
Not if you live around here, Maisie. Well, sometimes it can be a bit confusing to get around Berlin and find friends' houses, particularly if they're on one of those streets that has some confusing number systems going on.
Oh. Tell me more.
Okay, here's why. The French are to blame, essentially. This is an excursus into history. after the proclamation of the French Republic in 1789,
This isn't news.
we are here to explain the city.
Hot off the press. French Republic.
I think I need to apologize. I was supposed to intro this a bit differently. The intro is supposed to say that now we're introducing a new series where we ask questions about how the city operates.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And give historical context.
Okay.
And then Dan rips them to
No, but I
shreds.
legitimately always wanted to know about this, so I'll stop. Yeah.
Okay, so French Republic, 1789. The houses in France, the Republic, everything had to be new and schmicky. So the houses were now numbered. And they applied the so-called horseshoe principle, which means counting up on one side and then turning around and keep counting up on the other side so that you have one opposite 100 or whatever the number is that you arrive at.
No, but more likely like 20 opposite of 80.
Yeah,
Because one opposite 100 is the other system where you go left, right, left, right.
No. That would be 1 opposite 2, opposite 3, opposite 4.
Uran's got the facts down.
Oh, 1 and 100. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought 100 and 101, and I got those words confused. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. You'll be cut some slack here. At the same time that happened in Paris, in Berlin, houses were still just kind of marked with name tags and coats of arms and whatever not, just kind of random stuff. But as the city was growing quite rapidly, it became a bit confusing for tax collection and post deliveries and the sort. And so in 1799, Berlin also introduced house numbers, and also applied the horseshoe principle, modeled after the Parisian example.
Now, the horseshoe principle is the one that I would call the confusing one, right? This is like the up and down. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Rather than the opposite of this is the zigzag system.
The zigzag system.
So you have one
That's
opposite,
right.
2 opposite 3.
And here's why the zigzag system. As cities grow, streets become longer, and if you have the horseshoe system, you start at 1 and end at 100. But if you add another couple of houses to make the street a little longer, you kind of have to give every house a new number every time that happens. So that's a stupid idea, really.
Right.
And so in Paris, they were like, okay, we're going to use the zigzag system, which is all the unevens on one side and the evens on the other, just counting up.
So the
Easy.
French invented both systems.
Yeah,
So we can't just blame the French.
it's true. Yeah.
Cause of and solution to all our problems.
Yeah.
Homer
Yeah, in
Simpson.
Berlin, someone is to blame for not also adopting the
Okay.
zigzag system. But then Berlin was growing, and like municipalities around, like Schöneberg and Pankow and all those, they already applied the then internationally, it had sort of become a standard, the zigzag system. So they used that there. And when was it, the 1920s, I think, Berlin incorporated Schöneberg and these other municipalities around, the zigzag system was adopted as standard for all of Berlin. But it would have been too expensive to change all the horseshoe streets, so they just left them.
All right.
And that is why we have funny numbered streets.
But then you would think like there's like a clear kind of border somewhere, but there's not. And that's because the Nazis came along, and they in 1936 they started being like, okay, we got to do more zigzag stuff, and they started at Unter den Linden, adopted the zigzag system there. Then I guess other things became more important, and they stopped. But
So if we hadn't have had that pesky war, we would have had orderly street numbers, is what you're saying.
yeah,
It's actually
War's
the
just-
Allied fault for fighting back against... Right.
And then in the GDR, they renamed a bunch of streets to fit ideology, like street names with monarchistic, alluring names. And those streets, in the process of renaming, were also then renumbered according to zigzag system. But that's not all the streets either. So now we have just a really weird mix of all kinds of zigzaggy horseshoe things. Unique to Berlin.
Good job, Yuri.
Is it?
It's time for another new section on Radio Spreepark that we call Not Another Petition, or Not Another Referendum, to be more precise. So they keep piling up one after the other. More citizens' initiatives come up with their pieces of paper demanding different things. This time around, we're going to be talking about a referendum to try and keep Tegel Airport open.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So with BR still on hold, there's a petition that has now reached the first hurdle of 20,000 signatures to keep Tegel open even throughout when BR is open. Climbing this first hurdle means that the Senate now has to actively kind of look into it, and it also means that if they don't give in to the demands of that petition, they will have to kind of advertise it in all public places, like in Bürgerämter and stuff, and so that gives the petition a lot more publicity.
So the funny thing about this one is it's actually being organized by the party, the FDP, who are kind of this irrelevant party in Berlin. Well, I mean, they've got about 6% of the vote, but still they're really very minor. I don't think they have any seats in the parliament at the moment. I'll have to check. Maybe we'll get our guest on later, Conrad Verna, who might be able to tell us a bit more about that. But it's a bit, they'll obviously realize that this is an issue they can claim as their own, but it's a bit strange that the FDP, it's really not within their like party ideology in any way.
What's their party ideology?
They're just very free market liberals. They're like the liberal free market, pro-business party.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess airports are business, but it's just they're basically grabbing something out of the air and just using it as a way of trying to get a bit more attention before the.
It is election year.
And here we are giving them their attention.
I think they need their Daniel Abu from the Berlin Flughafen. Now he's looking for a new job. He could be their PR person. And I'd say the first thing they should do is rename themselves, because they call themselves the Pro Tegel movement, which to me just sounds like birth control. And I think he should just give them a new brand, or maybe Dan should do it.
I love Tegel Airport.
Yeah.
It's a warm, friendly. It's like a like a kindergarten airport. Yeah, it's tiny. You get off a bus and walk on a plane. Like that's insane.
Well, the reason given by the initiative to keep it open is that they reckon that BR won't actually be able to keep up with traveling demand when it's open.
There is a point to that, actually. The numbers don't really add up. The capacity of the airport is not equivalent to the number of arrivals they're expecting within the first year. So they actually do have a point there.
Such a good new airport.
Moving on to our next referendum.
Yes, there's another petition circulating about... when I read this, it says there's another petition circulating about Tempelhofer Park. So
Well, they probably are walking around the park getting
Okay.
signatures.
Right, yeah.
I assume that's how they're actually getting their numbers up. So as we all know, the biggest referendum of recent years was about Tempelhof. It was successful. It became a park. The government was told they can't build anything there. But it turns out that wasn't quite the case. The government now has gone back and has started rewriting that law that was created because of the referendum. They've done it at the moment to try and make room for refugees at the airport hangar. They've said that they need to update the law in order to let people live there. But the people who organised the referendum are really upset. They're worried that this security over the park being free is going to get chipped away bit by bit. And they're angry that the referendum didn't actually create a law that lasts, because that's what they thought it was going to do. So now they're trying to create a referendum about referendums. So they want to have a referendum that says that any referendum law has to be observed, basically. So if you see people out collecting, there's posters on the street already, another Tempelhof referendum. It's coming up anyway. You'll see it. You'll see it around more and more, I can guarantee you.
Joran, bicycle safety. What's happened so far?
There's another referendum about bicycles. And in 2013, the Senate opened an online dialogue asking citizens to point out potential for improvement for cycling safety on Berlin streets. And there were 35,000 people that voiced their opinions, and about 5,000 ideas were collected. And then in May 2014, the Senate listed the 30 most named points of conflict and published them online and said, all right, we're going to do something about these 30 things. What has happened so far? The Pirate Party inquired with the Senate, and they have published what has happened so far, and that is not very much. The only thing that really happened is Moritzplatz and Lützowplatz in Mitte. Those are two spots where they have actually increased bicycle safety.
I've got to say,
Moritzplatz
Moritzplatz has substantially improved. That you can actually ride through without getting killed there now.
It's so good, I agree. But like putting a bit of paint on the street, how hard can it be? Just do it everywhere.
Why couldn't people just put their hands up? It's like we're not hand up, turning left, turning right.
Well,
Maisie, you're coming out against painting bike lanes
bicycle
on the street.
safety, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good stance.
We're privileged and spoilt here. I like to
Maybe
keep it
FDP
dangerous.
can add that in and get it up to 7%.
Make it like London.
So this referendum was successful. They got the numbers, and they're actually making an impact on politics, aren't they, Yuri?
Well, first of all, the referendum was started because I guess they were frustrated with how slow people were with the senators with the bicycle stuff. And yeah, this new referendum has about 11,000 signatures now, and yeah, they're going quite successfully.
And they're actually making politicians talk about bike safety for increasing the bike budget, so we might get a few extra bike lanes built anyway. Yeah. Great. So that's our referendum wrap. We'll bring you more next issue. I'm sure there'll be next episode. There'll be another bundle of referendums to talk about.
And now a word from our sponsor.
So, was anyone here last episode? Any audience members? No? People at home, maybe you remember that last episode we announced that we had our very first time a paid sponsor for Radio Spreepark. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Was it also our last time, Joel?
Our sponsor went broke.
Oh, no.
Two weeks after our episode went to air, the company that paid us money to sponsor them, I emailed to try and find out when we were going to get paid for our sponsorship and got an email bounce back, which made me a little suspicious. So I called up and found out that, yes, this startup had shut down, as is the way in Berlin quite frequently. So a common fallacy is to, mistake correlation with cause, so it's not that we
I was
caused
going to say, did
this.
we do it?
No,
Yeah, we would just like to say to future potential sponsors, if you give us money, you might not go bankrupt.
You might not.
It's like a 50-50. Because, yeah.
So this happens a lot in Berlin. Startups start up and then they shut down. It's a new system that is called, what do they call them? Company incubators or company makers. These companies, it wasn't actually a single startup. It was a company founded by another bigger startup. So only one guy lost his job and everyone else got reassigned. But they were just testing out an idea, basically. They were like, hey, maybe this will work. And it didn't, so they just moved on. And
Okay.
I apologize.
Were we sponsored basically by someone's Tumblr? Was that like...
I apologize to any of our listeners who actually use their service because it doesn't exist anymore. With us now on Radio Spreepark is a special guest we've brought on, Mr. Conrad Verna. Welcome to Radio Spreepark.
Hello, thank you.
Conrad is a blogger and a columnist for the Ex-Berliner magazine, and he also is the co-host of a fantastic podcast that I thoroughly recommend called Neues des Nachrichtens. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that later, Conrad.
Okay.
But we're very happy to have you here, and we've got you
For
on-
listeners at home, Conrad's body language makes him look really comfortable on stage.
No, I'm fine. I'm always like this.
Oh, okay.
Just like this. Yeah.
So we're here to talk about local politics, Conrad.
Yeah.
We've got an election coming up this year.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're not German, then you can't vote. So sorry about that. But don't know if you. Anyway, but yeah. There's an election coming up this year. Yeah, that's true.
It's taking place on September 18, and just a small correction there. You can vote if you're a European Union citizen in your very local election, like you're only for the local city council. So what's going on in the Rotters Rathaus at the moment? There's a bit of tension between the two major parties who are ruling the city.
Yeah, there's a bit of tension. There's a lot of tension there because I don't know. The mayor is called Michael Müller, and he's like not as cool as the last mayor, you might have noticed. And he's sort of like this kind of a tight, crabby kind of character, sort of like a frog. And so the problem is that he's like much more of a party man, a party apparatchik. And he used to be the party leader in Berlin, the SPD. His party is the SPD, centre left. He used to be the party leader, while Klaus Wowereit, who's the cool mayor that we had, he was the mayor, and Wowereit never wanted to be the party leader. And what happened was, like 4 years ago, Michael Müller was ousted from his position by a man called Jan Stöß, who's a sort of judge.
Is he cool?
No,
Okay.
None of these people are cool.
Oh, right.
Apart from Klaus Wowereit, he's
All right.
retired. So.
I just want to keep score here.
No, yeah. None of anything I'm going to talk about now is cool at all. But anyway, so he's been ousted. So there's a lot of tension now because, but he was ousted by Jan Stöß, and then Michael Müller won his power play with him and became mayor. So it was the same. So you had the mayor and you had the party leader. But now Michael Müller, he wants to know, because he's got the election coming up. He wants to wissen, as they say in Germany. He wants to know what's happening. He needs to get the power to himself. So he's going to he wants to have his old job back as well as being the mayor.
He's going to double up.
He's going to double up.
You can do that?
Yeah, most places, most German states, they double up. Like if the head of the state is also usually the party leader.
Okay.
It was just never like that because Klaus Wowereit didn't have that. Wasn't interested. So yeah.
Are there machinations going on within the SPD as well as between the SPT and the CDU?
So there's that. There's all this tension, and next week is the SPD conference, local government party conference, and where Müller will be elected as the leading candidate, so the candidate to be for the local election in September, and and Sturz is going to be out, and he's not even going to be a deputy either. Like Müller does not like him. They do not like each other. They're both like these sort of party apparatchiks, and they don't like each other. It's really like GDR shit.
And so what's going on between the SPD and the CDU then? There's also, because of course CDU want to win the next election, don't they?
So they're in government together, right? So CDU, they have the interior minister, and they're pretty powerful. I mean, Frank Henkel is the leader.
Boo.
And yeah, we don't like him.
I know that much.
And so he's also not cool, by the way, obviously. He's CDU, but that's just...
We've actually been trying to coin a phrase where we're trying to use the term hankeling to mean being uncool or ruining a good time. So I'll just throw that out there. I think I actually overheard someone say it in a bar the other day.
So they, like the henkling is like, so he's really henkling.
Yeah.
Frank Henkel.
But the funny thing is that both major parties aren't actually doing so well after all this time. They're
losing votes. They're losing. The latest poll has been losing votes because, like in the rest of Germany, the AFD is becoming stronger, and they polled 13% recently, which would put them well into the parliament, and which makes it like all those. You might have read about the 3 local elections recently, where they're having all these coalition problems now because the AFD has entered parliament and it's throwing all the majorities out of whack. You know, like so the old majorities. And at the moment in Berlin, the SPD and the CDU don't have enough votes to get over 50% so that they can have a government again, which means that they'll have to do a coalition, maybe with a Linke, so it'd be. The possible, like a possible coalition would be the red-green, as they say. So the SPD, the Linke, and the Greens. But that's all up in the air. But no one wants to do with the AFD.
But the SPD
evil.
and the Linke don't like each other from the last time around as well, don't they?
Yeah, they all hate each other. Like, it's all awful.
Well, I'll give you.
I mean, it's like.
I'll give you one reason that maybe this gives my. For everything that's bad about the AFD, they've come up with one policy. No. Let me run with it.
Okay.
They have come up with one policy that could be a vote winner, and that is they want to scrap the TV tax. Yeah, it's going to make you think, isn't it?
Is it worth? Should we get rid of all the foreigners? No TV tax.
First, they came for my TV tax, and I said nothing.
Yeah.
But they also want to ban marijuana and do a lot of other things in the city that anyone who doesn't like the TV tax will also not like. So maybe read the whole manifesto before you agree to that one. All I'm saying is it's a very clever move of them to pick out something that they know that people don't like and go for it. It's very, very crafty.
Do you want to hear some more?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the other thing is that, because of the Michael Müller, because the election's coming up, he's being much more active. So 2 weeks ago, he announced his new housing program. For example, he's going to bring 30,000, 40,000 new flats to be built, which Berlin has really needed for ages. Like everyone goes on about, there's no affordable homes. Mm-hmm. So he's decided he's going to do that, and he's also started clamping down on organized crime. Did you know about that?
How did he do that?
Himself? Is it?
Yeah, he's like totally. It's like Batman. He's like he's like going in and like beating people up and getting out of his frog costume or something. So he had a raid. He had a raid and 2 raids on the Arab clans. They're called the Arab clans. There's about in Neukölln around this area. There's about 5 major families. They're like mafia families, right? So they had a big raid on them, and it was really like something out of Godfather. They were all like came out with the blankets over their heads, and they were like arrested. It was like they swooped in, and then 2 days later they did a big raid on the biggest brothel in Berlin. It's called Artemis. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's on the side of cabs and buses.
Yeah, exactly. So they swooped in there. There was a massive raid overnight while it was in operation. Like 900 officers were there, police officers and tax inspectors and customs inspectors. And they were like, and TV cameras were suspiciously present during the raid. And they questioned everyone. They questioned about 90 prostitutes. Questioned about however many customers were there, probably about 100. And then they let them all. Everyone was like, and then they was like, the press releases were like, oh my God, it's like the center of organized crime. This is a meeting place for Hell's Angels.
Yeah.
This is a meeting place for the Arab clans, you know. And it was a bit weird. Like, there can't be a meeting place for both different things.
Why not?
What do they alternate weeks? What do they do? Like,
I don't. Why do
Anyway,
Why can't all the organized crime just get along? Like,
yeah. Well,
So basically, they're trying to toughen up and show that they're tough on crime, and they're trying to do all these crackdowns ahead of the election to make themselves seem tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and the police are like really like, oh my, this is like this. Look what we did. It's like they said like we did it like with Al Capone. We got them with the tax evasion, and they was like really excited about it. And then the next day, the brothel was still open. Like it was just open the next day, and they was like, well, hang on. If it's like they imprisoned the two managers, whoever was running it, and everyone was like, well, hang on. You just said that there was like forced prostitution in there and there's tax evasion and all this other stuff, and then they said like, oh yeah. There's a problem with like their Gewerbeaufsicht, which is like a business supervisory council, and they are like these sort of people who live in an office who then they just what do they check if any like businesses are breaking the law, and the thing is like you can't just like shut the place down because it's being investigated for tax evasion, and there's no proof yet that there was any forced prostitution in there. So they had to they had to sort of climb down a little bit in all the.
So they're reaching for some really far because prostitution is legal in Germany, isn't it?
Yeah, but pimping is illegal.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And you can't, and it's illegal to employ a prostitute, which is that's by definition pimping. But the point is that you can't. And they were saying that we have evidence that there were timetables up in the brothel, like they were saying, like there were schedules when certain prostitutes work, which would make them employees.
So there's a lot of tough on crime tactics going on as the city election nears. So Henkel's trying to look tough. Michael Müller's trying to get control of his party. AFD's rising in the polls, and who knows what could happen between now and September.
Yeah.
What do you predict? Are we going to have a messy election?
Yeah, it would be total like mud.
Well, it'll be great for you anyway for reporting anyway. Maybe you could tell us a bit about your podcast, Conrad.
Yeah, it's a bit like this, but it's more like two middle-aged men in a room, in separate rooms, in fact, because he's in America. And,
to be fair, he's in Portland, which isn't really America.
Yeah, he's in Portland. Oh, yeah, okay. So I kind of imagine him like in a table with like a Civil War scene set up where he's painting little soldiers, and then he comes and talks to me. So it's like that. So we just talk about the news like this, but like Germany for like 20 minutes, and I sit alone in my room, and then we put it on the internet, and like 20 people listen to it.
And people alone in their rooms.
Yeah, it's like a little community of lonely middle-aged men.
The show is called Neues des Nachrichten, so you can practice your genitive case as well while you say that.
It's just called News des Nachrichten.
News des Nachrichten.
It's just news. It's just like the English word news.
News des Nachrichten.
Yeah.
And
it's in
about,
English.
You're a little bit more high level than we are, and you're talking about like the serious stuff going on up at the federal level rather than this, U-Bahns and bicycles,
We do we don't. It's more like general.
So if you want a bit of information about what's going on in Germany rather than just Berlin, head over to News des Nachrichten, where Conrad Verna will fill you all in, just like he did today. Thanks very much for coming along, Conrad.
Thanks. Okay.
So there's something that's been intriguing me a little bit lately, and I want to get you guys, both on stage and in the audience and at home, to help me figure this one out. And it's what I call the lonely bike locks phenomena. So my question I want to answer is this. When you're walking down the street and you see a locked chain locked to a post, but there's no bike? Yeah?
I've seen it a million times.
You've seen it every day. Well, my question is, what happened to the bike? No, seriously, how did the bike disappear? Where did the bike go?
It's just like it's like the worst magic show ever.
Well, I've been thinking about this topic very hard lately because it occurred to me that I've spent my whole Berlin existence walking past these locks and never actually thinking about how they came to be there and what actually means. So I have come up with 6 possible scenarios as to how the bikes disappeared from their locks. So we're going to go through them one by one and rank them according to likelihood, and then we'll have a clear picture of how this might have come to be. So the first one, number 1, is, and this is the one most people think of when you ask the question, somebody cut through the bike. All right? So let's think about this one a little bit. It seems to me it's quite unlikely, because that means you actually have to hack through the metal of the bike, which involves heavy machinery, and you'd have to solder the bike back together afterwards. You never know if you're actually going to wreck the bike and can resell it. It seems like a lot of work for you.
Yeah, that's not it.
So not only that, but if you have the equipment to be able to cut the bike, surely you could just cut the lock and save yourself the trouble, right?
Yeah, highly unlikely.
What's number 2?
So the answer to this one is, I think this is a bit of a maybe, because it could happen, but, yeah, okay. Number 2.
That's like a maybe, like anything is possible.
Right.
Okay.
Physically possible.
Option number 2, or theory number 2, somebody cut the wheel. So this is related to number 1. If you can't cut the frame, it's a lot easier to cut a bike wheel. But again, there's a lot of problems here because, how do you cut through a wheel? If we're talking about cutting through the tire and the frame, you're going to cause a huge big bang and people are going to notice.
Is the point of the story that you want to get into stealing bikes and don't know how?
So the other option involved with this one is that you could, of course, cut the spokes of the wheel, but that would imply that the person was stupid enough to only lock their bike to the spokes and nothing else. And who does that? And if that happened to you, you deserve to lose your bike, right?
I think that could happen. Some people do that.
I think a lot of people don't know how to wrap their. I mean,
hang on. We're getting through these one by one.
Okay, sorry.
This one I'm going to class as unlikely. All right.
What's number 3?
Number 3 is the polite lock picker. So according to this theory, somebody came along, jimmied open the lock, took the bike, and then closed the lock again and left it hanging there for the owner to come back and find. I'm going to rank this one as unlikely. Oh, highly unlikely. We'll go highly unlikely. Okay. Now, the next one I quite like. It's a very creative one, and I have to give credit to Mr. Joshua James Alas of Mobile Kino, who's also our Sandman tonight. But he came up with this one, which is called the Organised Cyclist Distributed Lock System.
That's a good one.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Already.
So the theory here is that bike locks are very heavy and they're hard to carry around. And so rather than carry a bike lock around, you could just leave one stationed at all the various places that you want to attend in any given day, like your own place, your workplace, at some bar, and then you could just lock them up.
That sounds a little bit like the beach towels.
You could also...
Doesn't it? It's similar, isn't it?
It's a beach towel phenomenon, but you could also, with 4 keys to the same lock, share a locking system with your friends.
All right.
Yeah.
So, because
we're getting now into some kind of huge conspiracy idea.
That's
where
not a conspiracy.
You're
That's like
talking about
4 friends who are like,
startup.
why are we carrying? We each own our own locks. It's a communal system.
I'm trying to do a scientific analysis of the likelihood.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen Joel in like 3 weeks. I was like, I think he's depressed. He's been out photographing bike locks.
I can see us leaving here and coming back in 3 weeks, and you're still doing this.
I'm not done yet, guys.
Oh, God. All right.
So, of course, yes, this theory, the organised lock theory, it fits into what we know about Germans. They're organised. But come on, if this system did exist, surely you would know somebody. There's so many locks out there that it can't, if this is some massive network, why haven't we heard about it? And why haven't we actually seen someone doing it? Have you ever seen someone take a bike and then close their lock and then ride away? To me, this one just seems
Joel,
to be...
have you staked out any of these locks? I think that's the next step.
Highly unlikely.
No.
Yes.
No.
No, you want to change the ranking?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the best answer you've had yet?
That one's maybe. Number 5 is the intentionally abandoned lock. So perhaps someone just gave up on their lock. Perhaps they just left it there. Perhaps they didn't want it anymore and they just left it out there with their mattress and their TV and they just, or maybe it's an art project, somebody, or some kind of symbol of love, that
Right, like on the bridge.
we're not aware of.
Maybe someone was afraid that they were going to steal the bike stand.
Or maybe it also could just be some kind of nihilistic act of a saddened bike owner who came back to find that their bike had been taken by the polite lock picker and just threw their hands up in the air and just went, that's it. I'm just walking away. I'm just going to leave it hanging there. But
Symbol of hopelessness.
I guess if you had
The lock representing a life infinitely looping towards nothing.
if you did come back and find your bike gone and your lock hanging there, I guess you wouldn't take it because it would have obviously been an ineffective lock, and you don't really want to recycle it. So yeah, okay.
It can be left to commemorate the loss of your bicycle as well.
All right.
In all of these cases, I think it's highly unlikely because although Berlin is full of art projects, and this could be an art project, it doesn't really seem to have much artistic value. And I haven't actually heard of the other idea, Dan, is it could be like a symbol, kind of like the shoes over the wire of like drug activity or some kind of underground activity that we don't know going on, and no one's filled us in. But in all cases, I'm going to rank this one as a big maybe, just because there's too many unknowns there. All right. So we've kindly come up to the very last theory, and this last theory is the only one which actually, if you talk to security experts, they'll tell you that the biggest flaw in any system is the human, right? So let's think about the human flaw that could be going on here, and I call this one the stoner. So some blissed out stoners riding along, enjoying their little hazy ride on a Sunday afternoon, getting to a party. They get where they want to go with a big grin on their face. They think they wrapped their bike up properly, but in fact they've just left it hanging midair, and they walk off smiling, never realizing that they've actually just left their bike for the picking for somebody to walk past and take. And now, given what we know about Berlin and the propensity of people to take drugs and to drink and everything else, I'm going to rank this one as highly likely.
Pun intended.
What's even more interesting is that when you think about it, that means that every single time you see a lock left behind, that means there's a stoner in the vicinity, or there has been at some point. And you could actually do some kind of social mapping where you record the number of locks in any given area and create some infograph which actually ends up showing you where the majority of stoners in Berlin live. I guarantee you there'll be a correlation.
Those would be the zigzag streets.
So anyway, there we go. We've gone through the 6 different theories, ranked them from order of likelihood. If you think you've got a better theory, or you think you know more than us, if you come up with a different one that cannot somehow fit into one of these subcategories...
Maybe you have a lock hanging there and you know how it got there?
Even better. I want to hear first-person accounts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you are a lock...
Please send in your information to hello@radiospeetkauf.com. This issue will be solved. We will get to the bottom of this.
Great job, thorough reporting.
Thank you.
Yeah, the S-Bahn, they're getting serious on with new anti-smoking laws.
Yeah, S-Bahn's cracking down on people smoking on the tracks. Since April 4th, they have especially trained personnel walking around and telling you off for smoking and taking 15 euros of you. You can pay this fine on the spot, actually.
Are you sure about that? Not like the other fine.
That's what it said.
Yeah, okay.
I really wouldn't want that.
Specially trained.
Especially trained, yeah.
Imagine.
I think that's a cigarette. I don't know. It's my first day on the job. It could be anything.
Is that a cigarette?
But Maisie, there's some other news about cigarettes that you're going to be happy about.
Yes.
Germany has decided to finally ban outdoor cigarette advertising.
All right.
Yeah, but not until 2020. Until then, everyone can still get, So until the year 2020, they're going to actually start phasing out outdoor and television advertising, but they'll still be allowed to advertise inside the shops where they sell them. I can't believe this took this long. It's amazing that in a country like this, where public health is a concern, that they've allowed it to continue on for so long, but finally they're taking action anyway.
Well, not for another few years. Berlin's drinking water has been tested again and shows dangerous sulfate levels.
Yeah, we talked about the sulfate levels in the water a few episodes ago because there's a massive big coal mine upstream in Brandenburg which is dumping its waste into the river actually illegally, and they're worried it's actually polluting the drinking water. They've done some tests and they recently found out that Müggelsee has between 250 and 300 milligrams of sulfate per litre. Now 250 is the safe level. And they reckon it's because of the dry weather and low rainfall that has also contributed to making the concentration a bit higher. So I don't know, this summer I don't think I'll be going to Müggelsee so much anymore, which is a shame because it's a nice lake. But
it was closed a few years ago for a different reason, wasn't it?
They've helped, yeah.
For algae, was it?
Yeah. Avoid Müggelsee and Wannsee if you value your life, basically.
The biggest ones.
They're
You used to
totally
think
filthy,
like there's enough
they're
water to
disgusting.
kind of water it down.
That's not an official stance.
Some police news.
In other news, the police have spent 50,000 hours in Görlitzer Park.
In the past year alone, that's right. So 1 year after declaring it a no-tolerance zone, the police have spent a total of 52,710 hours working in Görlitzer Park in the past 12 months. And that was, we only found out that through a question through Parliament. And they've actually had very little outcome as a result of all that. But if you calculate it down, that means it's 150 hours a day.
But Joel, there's only 24 hours in a day.
So that means that they could have had 6 officers on the clock 24 hours a day in the park for that same amount of money. But they didn't do it like that, of course. What they did is they sent in huge raids, hundreds of police at a time, and then they all left. Might have been a little bit more efficient even if you had one bloke walking around, because it's been completely ineffective. There are still dealers in Görlitzer Park all the time. It has not worked at all.
And whose idea was it? Henkel.
Henkel.
I don't think I've heard. That's a nice one. Sports news. I went out. I printed myself a press pass that I made in Word, and went out to the Max Schmeling Hall to cover the quarterfinals of the German Floorball Championship. What's floorball, you ask? Well, good question. I did not know until I got there, and halfway through the first third, and started Wikipediaing it. It's sort of like hockey, but with a wiffle ball, and you run around, and it's an action-packed sport that I highly recommend. I know I've reported in the past about sports that you've heard of and teams that have official backing and corporate sponsorship, but I thought it'd be fun to get out. There's 600,000 people are part of clubs and sports teams. There's 2,300 amateur sports clubs in this city, and it's honestly, if you don't care about sports that much, it's just as fun to watch any of them. But the floorball match was incredible. I was watching our home team of BAT Berlin. They're a BA Tempelhof, and they were playing against the evil bad people from Leipzig. I don't know. They seem perfectly nice, but. There's a small crowd all cheering along, nonstop action through 3/3, or I don't know, 3 periods? Periods, that's the word. Let's see, Leipzig went out to an early 2-1 lead. Berlin battled back in the second through some really incredible individual play, but in the end, we fell to Leipzig, I don't know, 5-4, I think? Was that right? Yeah, 5-4, and due to they just a really great team play, and all I gotta say is you guys gotta go out, check out. There's a bunch of great floorball teams all over Berlin. The floorball turtles seemed really cool. They had kind of a Ninja Turtle kind of theme going. I think I'm currently a fan of BAT, but I'm thinking about changing allegiances to the Turtles based upon my feelings about that comic book. BAT is in 5th place in the Bundesliga, and the Turtles, though, are 10-10 in regional Berlin level play. So. There's something for every. I don't know. Sports.
We have another sports update actually.
Yeah, maybe it's just been a bad month for Berlin sports because Hertha lost to Dortmund in the much anticipated semi-final of the German Cup in football.
But they're just corporate shills. Go out and support real Berliners, guys, playing real floorball, which is a real sport.
That's our sports news.
Well, Vladimir Putin doesn't like the idea of a music festival in Treptower Park, apparently, Joel.
Ambassadors of 10 countries of the former Soviet Union have signed a letter protesting the music festival planned at Treptower Park this September. That's where Radiohead is scheduled to play. Now, this includes Russia. The signers of the letter includes Russia and most of the stands, but it does not include Ukraine and the Baltic countries, probably because they're not getting along very well with Russia right now. The ambassadors said it was unacceptable that a rock festival would be held next to the Soviet monument, which is actually a grave for over 7,500 Soviet soldiers who died freeing Germany from National Socialism, they wrote. I didn't realize that actually that space was used as a grave. They're actually bodies underneath. I thought it was just a monument.
You should really read the plaques there. They're very informative.
The organisers of the festival don't actually have a fixed contract yet for the use of the park. The city government is obliged to find them a place to have the festival because they did have a contract for Tempelhof that the city government had to move because of the refugees that have moved into Tempelhof. So the city government's in a bit of trouble if they can't find a place for this festival. The diplomatic letter was actually organised by some of the residents of Treptow who've also collected 5,000 signatures against this festival. So they seem like a pretty organised group. If you can get 5,000 signatures and diplomatic responses from 10 different countries, I reckon you've got a chance of making this festival not happen next door. I wouldn't want to mess with them. But can you imagine, there's some little old lady sitting in her flat in Treptow who's like calling up the Russian embassy saying, would you write a letter? How organised? Yeah, I'm impressed.
Well, speaking of Russia, Lenin's back. There's a great big giant granite head, God, that's another thing that's quite hard to say, from an old Lenin statue, which is going on display quite soon, is it not, Joel?
In a couple of days, April 28th. This is the head of Lenin that was taken from a massive statue that was removed from the center of Berlin. You might have seen the movie Goodbye Lenin, where the statue was flown out on a helicopter and buried in different parts of the forest out near Müggelsee, actually. So there was a plan announced last year to try and put on an exhibition, or it might have been earlier than that, but they wanted to put on an exhibition. They had all sorts of troubles because the city government wasn't so much in favor of this idea, and they initially told the artists trying to coordinate this exhibition that they couldn't find the statue. They didn't know where they'd buried it.
Hold on, Joel. This head, right, we have pictured behind us, weighs 3.5 tons and was buried intact, the head, that massive thing, in Treptow Park, in Köpenick, and they couldn't find it.
That's what they said, yeah.
Okay.
So they actually did. They did find it in the end, and the exhibition is going ahead. So if you want to see this big statue for real life, get along to the Spandau Citadel from April 28th, when you will be able to see this exhibition. And speaking of exhibitions and things coming up, we're going to give a shameless plug to a sponsor that has not gone out of business. Possibly because they don't pay us any money, but they pay us in free movies and popcorn. So the sponsor is Mobile Kino, who put on great events all over the city, cinema-related. They've organised a festival coming up this week, April 28 to May 4. It's called Drugs in Film, a cinematic symposium. And it is all about the relation of drugs to cinema and how movies portray different types of drug use over the different decades. So they're taking a bit of an academic approach. They've got 8 movies, some new ones and some old ones. It's including all the kind of classic movies that we've got Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Kids, Train Spotting, Christiana F., and a new movie called Heaven Knows What. And they all deal with the topic of drugs and films from different angles. So if this is of interest to you, get along to the Drugs and Film Symposium. Check out Mobile Kino's website for details, mobilekino.de, and keep feeding us free popcorn.
Nice.
The BVG and the S-Bahn have released their annual estimation of the cost of Schwarzfahrgäste.
So they say that people who cheat on the U-Bahn are costing the system 15 million euros annually. But my question is, how do they know that? How can they possibly know how many people are not buying tickets? Like, really, think about it.
It doesn't actually cost them any money.
Well, I've got 6 theories as to how they could know. No, I don't have any theories. So yeah, they say it costs 15 million annually of lost revenue. And in other news, the same company says that they spend a total of 15 million euros on ticket checkers. So I don't have. Maybe this is coincidental that those two numbers are the same. I don't know. Anyway, that's how ticket checker news.
Well, but I think there's a solution here, which is to deputize citizens to make those arrests, to get up on the U-Bahn and check tickets. What, it's a $40 ticket, $40 fine? 60 euro fine, you get 20 of that. And we will crack down on these people riding our trains.
Well, actually, Dan, you're not far off. A friend of mine posted something on his Facebook wall that I thought was funny enough to actually share on air, because this was a real indication of the kind of people who we share our trains with sometimes. So here is a third-person report. Train personnel were asking passengers to show their tickets, did not hear it as I was zoned out into music. Then my unknown seat neighbor stands up and points out to the staff who had already passed that I had not shown my ticket. I pulled out my ticket and after a few seconds told my neighbor what I thought about her. I actually called her in German, Sie Nervbacher. What's that mean, Yuri?
Annoying cheek.
So our Facebook feeds now constitute news?
Well, that's news general. Haven't you checked? Haven't you seen The Guardian lately?
I'm going to... In that case, I would like to report that my nephews are super cute.
We're coming to the end of the show.
Aww.
But before we go, we want to say thank you to our guest, Conrad Verna.
Yay!
Check out his podcast, News and Nachrichten. Thank you to our videographer, Victoria Linchong, our photographer, Hermano Silva, our sound guy, Joshua James Allis, our host, the Comedy Cafe Berlin, you, the audience, a man called Darren from Sydney who wrote in to tell us he likes us, so that's cool.
Oh, thanks, Darren. Yeah, guys, give yourselves a round of applause for coming out.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.